it. You can give it to Ruby so she can clean her bag with it. That response set Ashton off immediately, and my phone rang with his incoming call. Can you stop being so petty and jealous? Ruby and I are soulmates, not whatever trashy relationship you've convinced yourself of, he snapped. If I really had something going on with Ruby, do you think you'd be the one married to me, enjoying the good life? Enjoying the good life? Those words made me feel lightheaded. Ashton and I started dating during my second year of college when Ruby had just left for her exchange program in Europe. Back then, Ashton's family barely got by, so I did not enjoy anything special. After we graduated, he started his own business, and while it might have looked glamorous from the outside, in reality, we had to pinch pennies. He was constantly stressed, trying to cover the company's huge expenses. It was not until 2 years ago that things finally turned around after a successful deal. However, by then, I had grown used to being frugal. I felt sorry for Ashton's struggles, so I never spent money carelessly. Meanwhile, I had to endure daily harassment from his mother for not giving her a grandchild. How exactly had I enjoyed any of his success? Clara, have some food, Will said as he walked back into the room, holding the takeout he had just picked up. His voice reached Ashton through the phone. There was a moment of stunned silence, and then Ashton's fury erupted. Who's there with you? Clara, do you really think pulling some stunt like this will get a reaction out of me? Tell that man to get out of my house right now. Don't think I'll tolerate having some random guy around. I could not listen anymore, so I told him I was in the hospital because I was not feeling well. There was a brief pause, which was followed by Ashton laughing bitterly. I see what's going on. You're so childish. Ruby gets pregnant, so now you're faking a stomachache to get my attention, huh? Let me guess. You're going to tell me you're pregnant too? What a joke. I've never seen anything more pathetic or disgusting. I gripped my phone tightly, repeating to myself not to get angry over and over again. More importantly, I could not afford to get upset because my baby could not handle the stress right now. Ashton, I'm not trying to force you to come back. I hope you and Ruby are having a great time. I have people looking after me here, and honestly, things are going just fine without you. It's actually a lot easier. It was the first time I hung up on Ashton before he could finish. Almost immediately, a flurry of angry messages came flooding in. Predictably, it was all about how unreasonable I was, and making him upset for no reason. He warned me not to regret it, and not to come running back to him crying and begging for forgiveness. I simply tossed my phone aside, picked up my food, and ate it. 2 days later, the doctor told me everything had stabilized, and I was cleared to leave the hospital. Will came to pick me up. I told him it was too much trouble, and that I could just call a cab, but he just laughed and said it was no big deal. It was what neighbors were for. His kindness hit with a pang of sadness. Ashton rarely ever drove me anywhere. However, if Ruby called, no matter how far she was, he would pick her up. You have a car, don't you? Why don't you drive yourself? That was what Ashton had thrown back at me the last time I asked him for a ride. Ruby doesn't have a license, so of course I have to go and pick her up. What if something happens to her while she's taking a cab? Are you going to take responsibility for that? I had just opened the car door to get into the passenger seat when I felt a strong hand yank me back. Startled, I turned to see Ashton standing behind me, his face dark and angry. What are you doing here? I asked, confused.